everybody.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have a question for you. I am wondering, have any of you failed? Put your hands down. How about if you failed, why don't you stand up? Just stand up. Okay. And if you have failed and despite failing you kept going, why don't you raise your right hand? Okay? And if you think you'll probably fail again at some point in your life, why don't you raise your hand as high as you possibly can? And now raise your hand even higher. Oh, very good. Okay, sit down everybody. Now I want to reflect on what just happened. So I asked you guys to stand up if you failed. Of course all of us have, so you did. And then I asked you to raise your right hand if you have kept going despite a failure, and you did. And then I asked you to raise your hand as high as you possibly could. But you didn't. You didn't raise your hand as high as possibly could because I asked you to raise it even higher, and you did. So that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about stretching our limits, reinventing our own boundaries that we create for ourselves, following our instinct, and challenging ourselves to accomplish bigger and better things than we could ever imagine. We're here to talk about grit. Now, before we talk about grit, let's see here. I need this clicker here, right? Before we talk about grit, I want to say what I think grit isn't. Grit isn't meaning that you're just working really hard at something, and it doesn't mean you just have a passion. So that's what grit isn't. And according to Merriam-Webster, grit is a firmness of mind or spirit, unyielding courage in the face of hardship. That's what grit is. It's not just working hard at something, and it's not just believing in something. And there's this woman, she's a social scientist, and she did a TED Talk on grit, and she's the one that sort of made this the new pop culture cool thing to talk about. Has anyone seen or heard of her book?
Angela Duckworth.
Angela Duckworth, exactly. And she has this wonderful quote, and whoever said Angela Duckworth, would you like to read this? You can come up here. Come on up here.
Vision test.
Yeah, vision test,
So
right?
grit is passion and perseverance for every long-term goal. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future day in and day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for the years, and working really hard to make that future reality. Grit is living like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Grit is like living a life like a marathon, not a sprint. And the more I become involved in the startup world, the more I feel like we're not allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to talk that it's really a grind, and we have boring days, and we have days we want to quit, and we have days where we're driving from Chicago to Indianapolis at 3 in the morning to get to somewhere. And there are days that we're on a shoestring budget, and there are days we sometimes don't even believe in our own mission. And the more I'm in the startup world, in the small business community, I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in this hype. And that's why I think it's so critical that Harry has taken the initiative to create a space where we're allowed to keep it real. And so I was reflecting on how I wanted to share my story today. And the truth is, I typically share my story in an entertaining way. I have done it on a TEDx stage. I do it for students and for youth and at universities. And I make it sort of a theatrical thing. And so what I decided to do for this event is I decided to tell it like it is. And I wrote it like a story. And I would like for you all to follow along my story with me today. So my story of grit starts in kindergarten. That's me. This is like a horrible picture because it wasn't taken with a smartphone, actually. It starts with 5-year-old Kristin. The age when I was fearless, the age when I thought I could be a princess and a National Geographic journalist. What did you guys want to be when you were 5? Somebody just yell it out. I want to
Race car driver.
Race car driver, yes.
Playing in mud.
Like a mud wrestler or something. What else? What did you want to be when we're just crazy. We had all the opportunities in front of us. Quarterback. Anyone else? I want to hear one more.
Tennis player.
Tennis player, all right. So the more I travel, the more I learn, the more I love this about the American culture. I love that we grow up feeling powerful, that we're told you can be anything, you can change the world, you can go out and you can shape your own reality. And I love that about the American culture, but I also think it can come back and bite us in the butt. Because we have an ego and we think that we can control things that are really out of our control. And that mentality, that belief that I could go out and change the world carried me through most of my adulthood, and I still think I carry much of that with me today. But some experiences abroad have grounded me. Now, I grew up in a small town in Indiana. I grew up on the south side in Greenwood. And I had a thirst for adventure. So I went to Spain. Steve, raise your hand. Steve was one of the mentors I first went to Spain with at Butler University. I lived in Mexico in a rough neighborhood. I backpacked in over 30 countries where I couch surfed and homestayed and had a lot of grand adventures. And I went to graduate school in New York City, and then I landed my dream job in Boston. So I had a lot of privilege and opportunity in my life. And along part of that journey, I ended up here. This is a picture, the coffeelands of Nicaragua. And as you can see, it's an incredibly lush and beautiful countryside. It's a beautiful place. But it also happens to be the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, where people survive on just a couple of dollars a day. Now, this experience, seeing so much poverty, influenced me to quit my cush, comfortable job in Boston and give up a really nice bonus. And I decided I wanted to go on a research fellowship and commit a year of my life to service in these poor communities. And what I decided to do was to partner with some of the poorest families. These are small coffee farmers who struggle to make ends meet despite being full-time employed and having this thriving small business. They still couldn't make ends meet. So what I did is I created this pilot program, and it was designed so that small farmers could learn better farming techniques and business practices from the more established farms in the region. And here's the thing. I had that 5-year-old ego in me, so I was very well prepared. I consulted with mentors, with top economists. My pilot program had to go through peer review, and I had even traveled to Nicaragua several times to conduct qualitative interviews with people on the ground. So it seemed to me like a very challenging but doable program actually failed miserably. It was awful. Here's how it played out. All of these farmers I set out to help did not want it. They did not want my help. I completely lacked understanding of the reality that they were facing. So why would a farm family that is struggling to put food on the table today want to join me at a number of meetings and change their farming culture and everything they have learned, so maybe in 3 years they could earn a little bit more money? That's how I was approaching their problem. They had no interest in what I had to offer. Harry calls this my quintessential failure. This is my quintessential failure story of an outsider coming in, thinking that because I had this academic perspective that I knew better. I was wrong. And here's the thing. If I didn't take that risk, if I didn't fail, if I didn't leave that comfortable job in Boston, I wouldn't have met somebody who completely transformed my life and reality. She is an astounding negotiator, a forward-thinking leader. She's a visionary for her community. And at the time, she was 11 years old with a first-grade education. This is Anna. Anna noticed me, a visible outsider living on a 100-acre coffee farm where she had spent most of her life. While her mother and aunt were out picking coffee, she was responsible for household chores. She'd sometimes wake up at 4 in the morning to gather firewood, prepare tortillas, and then spend the day watching her baby brother. I think Ana took an interest in me because I was unusual looking. She called me Chela, which is Nicaraguan Spanish slang for a fair-skinned female. On our very first interaction, Ana came up to me and said, "Are you my teacher?" And I told her, "No, absolutely not. I'm here doing my own work." And then she came up to me on a second day, and she said, "Would you like to be my teacher?" And again, I told her no. And then she came up to me on a third day, and she actually asked me, "Why do you always wear the same flannel shirt?" And I told her I didn't really have that many clothes because I carried my backpack around. But by the end of the week, Ana came up to me again, and this time, she had recruited a clan of kids living on and around this 100-acre farm and told them, "Hey, there's a new lady in town and she's going to be our teacher." And I would like to say that I caved and said, "Okay, I will be your teacher," because I wanted to step up and do the right thing, because I wanted to help these amazing children. But the truth is, I caved and said, "Fine, I'll do something with you," because they were not going to accept no for an answer, because Ana refused to give up. And so, after I said yes, Ana started doing what she does best. She started leading. She put together a list of things we would need for our school. So we're setting up this makeshift school on this 100-acre coffee farm where all these children lived. So, this is Jose. He went to a storage shed, and he's carrying a whiteboard on his head. He found a whiteboard. And Ana brought out one of her most prized possessions. It was a notebook filled with scribbles. And Stacy Maria had a box of crowns she stashed under her bed. She slept in a smoky kitchen she slept in a smoky room in the farm kitchen. And my job was to bring back jump ropes, soccer balls, pencil sharpeners, and plenty of art supplies. Every time I'd head back to the small city where I rented a room, I was given a list of things I needed to bring back for our next school session. And this went on for 2 months. Ana had persuaded me to become part of her scheme to create a grassroots school. This was from the ground up in her community. Ana taught me that even though I had failed in my effort to support farmers, that I could pivot. If I truly wanted to help people, it was my time to let go of my own ideas and my notion of how I could make a difference. I had to unlearn everything that empowered little 5-year-old girl wanted to do. Be a princess and National Geographic journalist. I needed to let go of those things. And instead, I needed to listen to what Ana was demanding. Ana showed me that there was a demand for education. There was a demand for the kind of education that offers children a safe environment. The kind of education that guarantees children have a meal. That guarantees that children have the opportunity to be silly with their friends, to read from new books, and take notes in their very own notebook. Ana, like all children in this community, wanted an escape from becoming an adult too soon. Ana did not need me, a Chela American, to tell her how to fix any of her problems. I had to let go of that confident little 5-year-old girl thinking it was my job to change the world. Ana had all the right ideas all along, and she leveraged my presence. Despite all that she had been through, Ana never gave up. She demonstrated true grit. She never gave up on her dreams to go to school. Here she is. Ana had firmness and mind and spirit. She never let go of finding a teacher for her and her friends. She was courageous. She approached me, a funny-looking stranger, and despite all the hardships she had gone through, she never lost her zest for life. Does that look familiar? I wish I could tell you that Anna ended up in school, but that's not the case, and this is what I can never share on stage or with anybody that gives us money. Last time I saw Anna, she was walking on the side of a road. She was carrying a dead chicken she had killed in her left hand. Her nails were dirty, her hands were worn from work. I picked her up in my truck and gave her a ride back to the dingy dorm where she lived with 4 of her other family members. I returned a few months later to this farm where she had lived, and she was never there. Her family moved to another further out farm where the harvest was more plentiful, and I never saw her again. But Anna has changed me forever. And this is why. This is what happens when you demonstrate grit. The presence of one little girl motivated me to start Project Alianza. She provided me with the necessary vision to give others what she never had: school. Anna was born in a world where no matter how hard she worked, she would probably never get ahead in life and never earn more money. But I was born luckier. I was born into a world where I could work half as hard and get twice as far. Because of the color of my skin, my nationality, my socioeconomic status, my language, because I had an education, I was in a position to influence and make a change. Because of Anna, we are building schools and providing education programs all across Nicaraguan coffee farms. And our plan is to expand beyond Nicaragua. I would like to show you an example of our work. This is a traditional public preschool in Nicaragua. It's no better than a chicken coop or a pig pen. And these are the conditions where children typically go to school. Because of our work at Project Alianza, we now form partnerships with privately owned coffee farms so we can turn this into this. This is a primary school for 101 children living in the coffeelands of Nicaragua. Their parents make no more than $2 a day. This is a school, this is a library, and this is a kitchen. Here's another view. And most importantly, this is what happens inside our schools. All of our schools have adequate resources so it feels like a real school. The teachers are trained, and children are living in a safe environment close to home. And of course, we always make time to play because I know that was important to Anna. Because of Anna stretching her limits, taking her hand just a little bit higher, one girl was able to help us impact 2,400 children across Nicaragua through our education programs. This is the consequence of grit. And I'd like to show you a quick video. Is it going to load or is it not going to load as a video? Here it is. Tyler made this video. So here's a glimpse into one of our schools so you can feel a little closer to Nicaragua. Before this school was here, it was just a hill. These children were completely out of the system, and now it's a fully functional school for 76 children. So this is what I call the honest story about Project Alianza. Not what I can put on the website, not what I can talk about with my foundation partners. This is what really happens behind the scenes. There's a lot of tears, there's a lot of setbacks, there's a lot of heartache, and there are children that despite the best of my intentions, I know they're not still getting to school. And this is why I think it's important that we create communities where we can speak openly about the things that are really hurting us and be able to speak about them more honestly. Because even though we just got recognized by Max Challenge and there's a lot of hype around our work right now, the truth is that there's still a lot of pain that all of us are going through. And that's why I completely value this community, Harry, and I'm so grateful that you have taken initiative to create this. Okay, so thank you for listening to my story. Now, I had a lot of fun doing research on grit, and we all recognize that grit is important. So it's important for our companies, it's important for our relationships, and by honest example, we realize it can actually impact the world. And the good news, like Harry said, is we all have qualities to be gritty, and we have the opportunity to improve them. It just takes some cultivation and practice on our end. So this morning, we're going to flex our grit muscles because all it takes is practice. And the first step means we're going to get out of our comfort zones. So everybody has a letter on their name tag, and we're going to form 4 groups. So there'll be a G group, an R group, an I group, and a T group. So you guys can figure out how you're going to sort yourselves out.
Thanks again to everyone for coming. Really appreciate a great conversation. I helped start an organization called Apprentice. Harry introduced us at the beginning. Paul here is our program director at Apprentice.
/ security guard, depending on the role. Yeah.
We help young people transition into careers. Sometimes it's from one career to another. Sometimes it's from high school or college into a career for the first time. Jeremy, do you see Elise out there?
She just had to take off a moment ago, actually. Yeah.
So the Elise, the blue-haired girl that you guys all saw as you came in, she, for example, is someone who we're helping launch a career in graphic design. And the Indy logo and the material and things like that is actually her handiwork. Again, there's some other people here that have been involved with Apprentice. Could you raise your hands again? Just real quick. So Matt is an intern of ours in web development. Kylie is not an intern, but she's involved in our graphic design guild. Anyways, long story short, almost everything that you've seen and produced, other than Kristin's amazing presentation, of course, we can't take any credit for that.
No.
It came from young people that are donating their time and efforts. So over the last year, a couple years, I think we've helped, is it 40 kids?
44 is the exact count.
44 kids.
Yep.
When we started this organization, we thought we could do it completely bootstrapped, and we've done pretty good at it. But what we came to realize this year is that the need is greater than what we can just make work on our own power. So we are officially going nonprofit as of the beginning of 2019, and we need just a little help to get there. So this is not a cost of entry, but it's just a passive request. If you look on the back of the Indy Grit handouts, and if you don't have one, please grab one on your way. There's a little description about Apprentice, and we have a donate page that we've launched, and we have a goal On there, we're trying to raise $9,500 by the end of the year. That covers accounting fees, legal fees, personnel, all that. We really want to grow because where our success has been the greatest has been in helping kids get their careers going. We have a 90% success rate when kids enter our program. Also, if you don't want to donate, but you have a business that you think could use a structured intern program and you're having trouble growing or scaling your business, that's another way where we can work together. Just talk to us later if you wish. So that's it for me, and again, thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you all again, hopefully.
December 6th.
December 6th at Matt Middleton's place on the Circle. Thank you, and thanks for coming. That's it for today.